Hi, I'm meteorologist Mike Ottenweller with the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center, and I'm here to give you your 2024 spring breakup outlook. So I know folks out there along the rivers are paying attention closely to how conditions are changing and when those rivers might open up. And we at the River Forecast Center for the past several months, and especially the past couple weeks, have been really dialing in what the data says and when we think things are going to break up and how severe they might be. So as we get ready to look at that data, I want to just remind everybody for a moment first this is a time to be flood prepared. So we talk about being flood ready, and what does that mean? Well, things like your evacuation plan, you can review that now. It's always a good idea to review it just in case those flood waters do rise. Several places in 2023 saw those waters rise very quickly, and some of those during the nighttime hours. And so now is a good time to think about what you could take with you. Does it you need to be your pets, your prescription medication, any special food needs, those type of things. You also want to look at your emergency contacts. Just make sure they're up to date and make sure that you have a way to let your friends and family know that you're safe in case those waters do rise. Also, it's a good idea this time of year to move anything that could be in a flood-prone area up and out of the flood-prone area. So vehicles or any wintertime activities, those things should start to come up out of the flood-prone areas now so that we can be ready for what might be to come. A couple things that we consider when we look at our spring breakup outlook. Talk about snowpack, we talk about ice thickness and strength, and we look at what the spring weather patterns are going to hold. Those temperatures, late April, early May, are very, very important in terms of what's going to happen with the snow melting across the state. It's also important for thermal conditions of the ice and the integrity of that ice. And then finally, it's going to help us to drive what is either going to be a mechanical or a thermal, quiet, mush out type breakup. So our snow pack across the state, this is looking at our snow water in the snow from April 1st, when we had our last good sampling of data from our partners at the NRCS and over in the Yukon Territory. So our couple areas of concern are up towards the Porcupine Mountains and some of the headwaters of the Yukon. We're about 135% of normal there. And then towards Copper River Basin, where we would have some snowmelt potential, there's still above average snowpack there. And then as we look towards western Alaska, we do have some places running between 100 and 150% of normal out in that area as well. Looking towards the Yukon, as you can see here, that's where we are starting to see conditions not so bad for snow amounts down towards the headwaters of the Yukon, Dawson. That's where we have a little bit lower than normal snow, but up towards Old Crow, a little bit higher than normal snow. So how about for our difference from last year? You know, last year, 2023, a pretty dynamic breakup. So how does it compare this year? So the places where we have a little bit more snow than we saw last year, about 30% more snow across the lower portions of the Yukon, and maybe some of the lower portions of the Kuskokwim, and some of the lower portions of the Yukon. For the main body of the Yukon there in the central portion of the state, lower than what we saw in 2023. And then again, up towards the Porcupine Mountains, we see those numbers a little bit higher than what we saw in 2023. So those are our concern areas that we are targeting. Ice thickness, a little hard to see on this graphic, but you can go to weather.gov and you can see that information for yourself. In general though, ice thickness across the state was near normal, and that's better news than 2023 when we saw a lot of conditions above normal and some of them even record. Where we do have some concerns is where we see this, what we call jumble ice. So this ice will not be as easy to move once the waters start to try to push it out of the river. And so it could be a potential for a jam when we see this type of ice. And you can see there, we documented this from our friends at Fresh Eyes on Ice when they took a trip between Rampart and Ruby. And so these are the type of things that we are keeping a very close eye on. If you have any reports of this type of ice in your area, please let us know. Again, weather.gov/APRFC. And we'll see that on the screen here in just a minute too. So think twice before you go out on the ice. I think that picture speaks for itself. What's our outlook for the early portions of May? May 4th through the 17th. This is a very general outlook. I don't want you to think that this is exactly what's going to happen. There's still a lot of time and uncertainty, but generally near normal temperatures across much of the state, with above normal kind of expected from Eagle down through southeast Alaska. And then pretty much near normal precipitation for that time frame as well, with the exception being off towards southeast Alaska where it could be drier than normal. So a couple places where we are kind of keeping an eye on the temperatures. You can see here for Fairbanks, this orange swath is where the normals would be. And we saw temperatures above normal last week, but now we're starting to see things rebound a little bit closer to normal, cooling things off. Those above normal temperatures help us to start to melt that snow, deteriorate the ice a little bit quicker, so that's good news. Same thing for Eagle. Very good news. Last week started to see some sunshine and helped to deteriorate that ice. But as we go forward in time, a little bit of a cooling trend, and then we'll see things warm back up once again. Different story in Bethel. Temperatures not quite as warm last week and trending a little bit cooler, a little bit lower on that normal side of things as we look into next week. So Southwest Alaska, a little bit cooler than what we would like to see this time of year in terms of deteriorating that ice and mushing things out. So what type of a breakup do we expect? Well, there's two types. The dynamic breakup is the not so good breakup, and the thermal breakup is more of a mush out and where we see things really deteriorate on their own and the ice can move through with no issues. 2013 and 2023 were dynamic breakup years, and those were extreme cases. And then as we look towards this year's forecast up at the top there, 2024 trend, it's always going to be a blend, but right now Western Alaska has a little bit more inclination to be a dynamic breakup, whereas Eastern Alaska should be more in the thermal breakup. Okay, so how about for our village map here? You can see some areas of concern are along the lower portion of the Kuskokwim where we saw that higher than normal snowmelt, and then up towards the Yukon. It's really the Fort Yukon area where we see that snow coming from the Porcupine that could be a contributing factor to what we would see for potential flooding concerns. For our timing for our breakup, this slide of course is very important. Generally near normal for the Brooks Range. We're going to be about 2 to 5 days late with those cool temperatures for much of Southwest Alaska, and then about 1 to 3 days late. And that might be trending a little bit more towards 0 to 2 days late for the eastern portion of the state. And then for our breakup map, only a couple places thus far have reported anything in the nature of breakup. Nikolai was the first spot to go. We heard from Skwentna last night that they also have broken up. And then there's just a few open spots in the interior portions of the state and along the very far southeastern portion of the Yukon off there into Canada. So with that, I want to remind everybody that we really need your observations. This is the time of year where we rely on that information, where we need to hear from you in terms of what's going on in your area for snow, for ice thickness, all of those things. So lots of ways to get in touch with us. You can find us on the web at weather.gov/APRFC. You can stay up to date yourself on our flood potential graphics. And then, of course, the couple ways to contact us, again, the web, email, and there's our phone numbers as well. We're also going to be very active on social media. You can expect to find us on Facebook and Twitter. And then finally, I'll step off here so you can see this graphic from earlier yesterday, and that is over at Dawson, and you can see a little bit of the Klondike starting to bleed into the Yukon River, and so we expect breakup to continue to break up, to evolve. So thanks for joining us today. If you have any questions, please get in touch with us, and we appreciate all of your attention as we head into breakup. Stay safe.